Welcome to a brief webinar on quieting the voices. My name is Jay Otto, and I'm a research scientist with the Center for Health and Safety Culture at the Western Transportation Institute at Montana State University. At the center, we conduct research on how culture impacts health and safety. All of our research is sponsored by agencies and organizations wanting to make a difference in the communities that they serve. This is a brief map that shows our current and past projects. It helps you see that while we're located in Montana, we actually do projects all across the country and have done a few projects in Canada as well. At the center, we focus on three core issues: traffic safety, substance misuse, and violence and child maltreatment. Together, these three issues have a tremendous impact on unintentional injury, which is one of the leading causes of years of potential life lost. We recognize that these three issues are interrelated, and that future efforts to improve the health and safety regarding these issues will require more alignment and integration at the community and state levels. At the center, much of our research focuses on the positive culture framework, a way of organizing our work to improve health and safety. During this webinar, we're not going to go into much depth of the positive culture framework. There are other webinars that you can view that go over that. But we do want to recognize that the outcome of our work is to improve health and safety, and that we believe we're going to do that by increasing protective behaviors and decreasing risky behaviors across the social ecology. In other words, efforts to improve health and safety will require change. Now, while this may seem obvious that improving health and safety requires change, sometimes we forget to recognize that. And it becomes important because if we are agents of change, then we need to study change and become more familiar with processes and ways to navigate change. Because our success at improving health and safety in our communities will require our communities to navigate change. This will require change in behavior and change in thinking. And this will occur amongst ourselves, our coalition, our stakeholders, the organizations that serve our communities, and members in the community as well. So this brief webinar is about quieting the voices. During this webinar, we're going to explore resistance to change and identify three voices that can very much act as resistance to change. We're also going to explore ways to quiet these voices so that we're more likely to successfully navigate change in our communities. Research on change has been going on for many, many years, and almost about 100 years ago, Kurt Lewin developed a very straightforward model to think about change, both at the individual and organizational level. What he recognized was that the work was not just about changing, but actually we needed to do work before the changing took place. He called it unfreezing. Unfreezing the frozen habits that we've established, habits about our behavior and habits about the way that we think. And before we can undergo any kind of change, we have to intentionally think about unfreezing our existing frozen habits. Another researcher, Otto Scharmer, explored these issues in his work on what he calls the theory U. He recognizes change as a two-step process. There is a letting go, and there is a letting come. We have to let go of our existing beliefs, habits, ways of thinking, and then be able to explore and accept new ideas and a new future to come forth. So he describes it as a letting go and a letting come. However, the challenge is resistance. As humans, we tend to resist letting go and letting come, and we need to learn more about the challenge of resistance to become better agents of change within our communities. Scharmer describes three voices, and we're going to walk through each of those three voices right now. The first voice occurs at the level of the mind, of thinking, and we call this the voice of judgment. When the voice of judgment gets in the way, it blocks our ability to engage in inquiry or reflection, or really to be truly open. And when we can quiet the voice of judgment, we're more likely to be able to see things as they actually are, to observe new information, and to get a better insight about the truth or what is really happening. Voices of judgment can sound like, "Those results confirm my current thinking." While this is good, when information confirms how we understand things, if we only look at results that confirm our current thinking, then we will be stuck in our current thinking and unable to move to new ways of thinking. In other words, we won't be able to change. So while we feel good when results confirm our current thinking, we really have to quiet this voice and allow ourselves to see results which challenge our current thinking. We'll often hear, "Those results do not reflect my community." This is a sense that our community is unique and different from other communities. And while this is true on some levels there may be a lot of similarities and commonalities between communities. And so this voice of "those results do not reflect my community" is really a voice of judgment that inhibits our ability to see information and see our own communities perhaps in a new way. And finally, we can hear a voice that sounds like, "Those results are wrong. Clearly, people lied. Everyone lied on the survey." This is a very common voice that we hear, and we need to recognize it as a voice of judgment. And while, yes, we absolutely need to always question and understand the ways of how a survey was implemented, and acknowledge that biases exist with all sorts of survey processes, we don't want those to get in the way of our ability to challenge our own beliefs and to challenge some of our thinking. And we don't want that voice of judgment to block our ability to engage in inquiry, reflection, and openness to perhaps see new things. So these are just 3 examples of voices of judgment. Clearly, there are others that can come up as well. The second voice operates at the level of the heart, and we call it the voice of cynicism. It blocks our ability to be empathetic or appreciate others. While a voice of judgment occurs in our own mind and how we see things, a voice of cynicism tends to get in the way of our interactions with others. And so when we can quiet the voice of cynicism and be more empathetic and appreciative, we can then also begin to grow a sense of love. Voices of cynicism can sound like, "That will never work in my community." That's a voice that doesn't allow for a new possibility to occur within my community, and I'm already judging that my community won't accept this or it can't happen. We tried that and it did not work. This is again a voice of cynicism. There are many reasons why things don't work, and a certain process or approach may not work in a community. But again, we're trying to quiet that voice that doesn't even allow us to explore or think of something new. And people here will never do that. This is a phrase that can come back to that sense of my community being very different than other communities. And so what works somewhere else can't work in my community. Now that's a possibility, but we want to quiet that voice just to not allow the voice of cynicism to block even the possibility that we might explore new ideas and approaches in our community. The third voice operates at the level of will, the level of motivation, deep within us. And it can manifest itself as a voice of fear. When we can quiet the voice of fear, we can allow courage to come forth, courage to try new things, do new things, and hopefully take our communities to new places where we can improve health and safety. Voices of fear can sound like, "I'm not sure I understand. This is scary." This is often something that we may not say out loud, but our inability to understand something because it's new can make us afraid. We're very comfortable with what we know, but new information can be scary and take us away from a place of confidence. We have to listen in ourselves for when the voice of fear blocks us from taking in something new or learning something new. Learning is hard, but it's critically important if we're going to improve health and safety. It can also look like, I don't know how to do this. I know how to do what we've been doing in the past, and I'm very good at it. And letting go of that feels scary. But that's an important part, because we're only going to improve health and safety if we start to change people's behaviors and make change. And that may require doing new things, even for us to do new things. And that sense that if I take new ideas out to others, people may ridicule me. They may challenge me and raise some of the same issues that I've been raising as I confront or explore new information. So these are all voices of fear, and they're important to acknowledge, but we have to think about how can we start to quiet those voices to create a space where we can explore new ideas. So now that we've identified these three voices that can inhibit or act as resistance to change, we want to explore a little bit about what we can do to move beyond them. First, we can begin by recognizing the voices. Merely labeling them and calling them out can help us address them. This begins first in ourselves and then with others. But we have to begin with ourselves and identify when voices of judgment, cynicism, and fear rise up to inhibit us from taking in new information, from learning new things, and potentially exploring new options. We can also create space where we can temporarily quiet the voices and explore new thoughts. This can be easier done in small pieces. So we can say something like, let's momentarily suspend our disbeliefs and just imagine this information is accurate. Now, what would that mean to us? How would that change what we're doing or thinking? By taking small steps at quieting the voices, just momentarily, may be more successful for folks for whom those voices are very strong. And finally, we will need to build skills in helping others quiet their voices. We know that the work of improving health and safety in our communities is not going to be done by us alone or our coalitions, but is going to involve a wide variety of stakeholders across the social environments of our communities. And we're going to need others to change as well. So we need to build our skills in helping others acknowledge and quieting their voices so that we can foster changes across our communities. If you'd like to learn more about the Center, our research, or our approaches, you can visit our website. On our website, you will find webinars about other topics like this one. You can also learn about when our next Positive Culture Framework training will take place. To help you process some of this information, we encourage you to reflect on these three questions. Think back over the last few weeks. When was a time when a voice of judgment may have limited your ability to absorb new information? How might voices of cynicism impact your efforts to improve health and safety? And what practices can you and your coalition establish to help quiet the voices? Take some time to explore these questions and even perhaps review some of the content of this webinar. Quieting the voices becomes an extremely important skill when we think about the work of being agents of change. Feel free to visit our website or follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Thank you very much for your time.